There are busy days and there are wonderfully busy days. And the Centre Court Executive MBA Festival has been one of those wonderfully busy days. I can't believe that we're already reaching the end of so many great live sessions, but we're keeping the momentum up. One of the key themes has, of course, been where can an executive MBA take your career? Discussions about the tangible benefits of heading back to school, upskilling, the leadership skills and everything else that you'll get to hone in this next stage of your personal and professional development. But also what so many of those smaller, more personal aspects, discussions of self-confidence and a sense of purpose. I'm sure we'll extend that as we think about why the EMBA is such an incredible opportunity to explore, to pivot, to set an exciting path. And where better to look than three of the top US business schools at UNC Kenan-Flagler, at UT McCombs, and at Florida Warrington. So it's a pleasure to invite the panelists. Sarah Nathan is joining us from McCombs. Sarah is the Managing Director of MBA Career Education and Coaching. From UNC, Bill Faulkner, who's the Senior Associate Director of Career Coaching and also the Programming, finding out that balance to keep so many demanding executive MBA students engaged from beginning to end. And from Florida Warrington, Craig Petrus, who is the Assistant Dean of Business Career Services. Perhaps we can give a little bit of a flavor of each institution. And Sarah, of course, we have the tower of the UT campus behind you. So tell us, beyond Amy's ice cream, a personal passion, tell us about McCombs, about why Austin makes such an exciting location for the school, and what makes you so excited about the Executive MBA program.
Yeah, I will say Amy's Ice Cream is not far from campus. There's several locations, but in fact, our executive MBA program is a once-a-month program. So they do come to campus once a month, but we also go other places. It's one of a number of programs we have for working professionals. Do you want us to get into the stats at this point or just talk a little bit about, the program itself? What would be most
Let's start with the program, because I'd love to explore ROI and some of the great outcomes that the students enjoy. But starting with the program itself.
Sure. Yeah. So, the average age in our executive program at this point is, around 17 years of experience, typically 8 to 10 years of work experience. We find that the minimum required is 8, but students really become competitive once they're in that 12 years of experience plus. We really look at it as students who aren't just looking to, advance their careers. Obviously, that's a big part of it, but a lot of times they're already doing a lot of the work. They're managing people and they're looking to step up their game and really make more of an impact in their organization, to gain confidence in a role that they already have because of their, what they've taught themselves, but they want to be able to really, again, make more of an impact, keep doing more of what they're doing. So we are a once-a-month program. On weekends, we find that our executives are really busy. They really, have a lot going on, and that kind of program fits their schedule. We have most of the activities here in Austin on campus, on our beautiful campus here, in our new building. Which is, not too far from the tower. But we also have programs that take place in places like New York. We draw a lot of students from Texas, but honestly, because of the flexibility of the schedule, we draw students from all over the country who are looking to come here.
Bill, we were talking about the iconic old well on the beautiful UNC campus, and you go to a well to replenish, the essentials of life. Replenishing perhaps is a good metaphor for an executive MBA and people heading back to Kenan-Flagler. So tell us about the school. Of course, there are so many different aspects to share, but what makes it so special for you?
Yeah, thank you. And you're right. I think those who are seeking an executive MBA are doing so, especially at this time of what we call age and stage of life, are doing so for some kind of career accelerating or career disrupting reason. And so what makes us, I guess, a little bit unique, we run 3 different executive MBA programs. We have what we call the evening program, which meets once a week, and our fairly new Charlotte program. We're about ready to wrap up a cohort there. We are in the evening in Charlotte programs. These are 24-month programs, pretty much on the same calendar, but we just take advantage of the Charlotte market. As you can imagine, a lot of finance, a lot of banking, manufacturing. And of course, on the evening program side, our proximity to Raleigh, we're actually in Chapel Hill, but about, I don't know, about a 40-minute drive from Raleigh. In that area, we take advantage of all the technology, biohealth, biopharma, medical devices, and some manufacturing, and some banking and finance as well. And then our weekend program really pulls students from all over the country. Our weekend program tends to skew a little bit older. As Sarah was mentioning, our students are around in that weekend program around 10, 15 years of experience. And the weekend program meets once a month on campus, and then virtually once a month. And then, of course, they have async work in between there. So, and again, I think it's really capturing that student who wants to move to the next level. And the one thing I will add that's probably, I don't think, not totally unique for us, but due to our proximity to Fort Liberty and Fayetteville and Washington, D.C., we pull a lot of current and transitioning service military folks, those that are more senior officer types. And so we can capture a lot of those students who have interest in our programs as well.
Well, Craig, I'm sure that the reach from Gainesville and of course the number of alums, University of Florida alums all over the country and indeed all over the world. But tell us about what draws people back to Warrington as they think about the next steps of their personal and professional development.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's some decent industry here in the state of Florida. As you look at in close proximity to Gainesville, you have Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and those are really within 2 hours of Gainesville. And so when you think about industry in those regions, those markets, we draw well for those executives in that market that want to join and get their EMBA from our program. For us, we're a 21-month program, about 48 credits, and they meet on Saturdays and Sundays about every 3 weeks or so. And we're a nationally ranked program. We're number 8 in the country among public universities for our EMBA program. The average age of our student is around 37 years old. We have an average years of work experience of about 13. Although we don't require it in our program, where average GMAT score is about a 600 and average GPA is about a 3.1. We tend to tell students the commitment to the average commitment, weekly commitment to be successful in our program. When you think about balancing work, life, and school all at the same time is around 10 to 15 hours per week in which they can expect coming from our program in which to be successful. So.
Well, and all of you have touched on the flexibility, including geographic, and how people, busy, accomplished individuals can fit this into the program. But perhaps beyond sort of a snapshot of an average age in the program, Sarah, some of the qualities that you love to see, people that are curious, they're looking to make this commitment, take their careers to the next level. So are there certain criterion and experience? They've led small teams. What do you typically look for in terms of characteristics?
Certainly, yeah. Management experience is critical. We have other programs that are geared at people who are earlier in their career, whether it's the full-time program or some of the evening or weekend programs. But we really are looking for those, leaders and senior leaders in this. In terms of skills, at Texas and at McCombs, one of the things that we really emphasize across all of our programs is collaboration, gaining from working, whether it's in teams or, the networking aspect, but really looking for people who want to be here to collaborate, who want to work together with their fellow students. And, as you sent over some of the prep material for this, one of the questions I really liked was also, for students who are looking to advance in their career, are they really focused on one goal, or how do you talk to students in terms of how this program would fit into their goals? And I think a lot of those values you're talking about are what we talk about. It's not just about, I want a specific job. That can certainly be very motivational, but what are your values? How are you thinking about all of the skills that you have, and how are you thinking about your future? And can you tell, a really coherent story about what this would mean to you? And so I think that understanding yourself and understanding your story on top of, of course, great professional achievements is really something that we look for when we're looking at prospective students.
Right. But Bill, Sarah talks about individuals thinking about their future. Now, whether military looking to transition to civilian life, whether they're in the finance or the healthcare industry that you're describing on the Charlotte campus, do they need a clear plan and indicate to you where the executive MBA fits at this stage as they look to accelerate or make a pivot?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I think it depends on the student. You know, the one thing I always share is that the executive MBA has a good bit more of a shelf life than, say, a full-time MBA, where the students have to convert before they graduate. If, you know, best possible worlds. But for an executive MBA, what I found with my students is that some are there to advance, and I call these career vectors. They are, and my colleagues may be familiar with these terms, but you know, they may advance, they like their company, they want to stay with their organization, they may have been identified as high potential, but they just want to grow and be equipped to do so. And the MBA is part of that credentialing process. And then we do have the career explorers, people that often, because of where we're located, very accomplished, very niched individual contributors that want to move to that people management role, or maybe switch to something a little bit different as is. And then, yeah, they are what I call the enhancers, people that just like what they're doing. They just want to get better at it. And then recent phenomenon that I've been working with is career designers, people like military folks that have been doing something for 10, 15, 20 years. And I think even for those in the private sector, COVID hangover, call it, or, you know, recession and layoff, and they kind of just decided, you know, I just don't think I want to keep doing what I've been doing for the past 10 years, but I'm not quite sure what that is. And so I think for us, and mostly I guess our students fall in the explorer advancer kind of posture, but we do have students that really want to design or redesign a whole new different career pivot, and they're obviously using the executive MBA at this point in their life to do so.
Right. The poets quants viewers, Craig, know that I've lurched from one midlife crisis to the next with each Centre Court festival. It certainly sometimes feels that way. But this idea of change and introducing that to your life, if we go back, what, 15, 20 years, when, you know, a lot of firms would be looking to solidify the career trajectory of an individual, but there are so many more self-financed exec MBA students these days, perhaps entrepreneurs in that mix, or someone that figures this might be the chance to make that sort of change. So how have you adapted to reflect what each individual is bringing and the sort of transition they might be looking to make?
Yeah, sure. I think from a programmatic perspective, when we think about career, similar to some of the my other colleagues here in the call, we talk about a career switcher, a career enhancer, or an entrepreneur. I think to your and a leadership component as well, and then and a little bit of a networking component too as well. But to, you know, Matt, to your point, I think 10, 15 years ago, you know, these individuals were really getting their executive MBA to really enhance their career at their particular company, right? But as you see within the past 5 years, 8, 10 years, there's a lot of movement of individuals inside their organizations, but outside of their organizations as well. Coming from an executive search background myself, we kind of shunned upon that, but way back when. But now these days, it's almost expected or not as red flagged as it is in the past. So I think from a career development perspective, we work with those students who want to make those pivots outside of their companies, and work with telling their story about why the moves they made, and why the multiple moves they made, and where they're going, and what reason. So hopefully that answered your question, but I think it from a career perspective, when we coach students, we've had to change our coaching strategy to work with these individuals, and it's just expected these days to see a resume with the multiple moves, if that makes sense.
Right. Faculty have often commented, you know, they love the EMBA classrooms. They've got, whether it's 30, 50 individuals that bring the sort of 14, 15 years, Sarah, that you were describing, you know, that's curating 500 or 600 years of professional experience in a classroom discussion. But as I head down I-35 into Austin for my 4th weekend session, you know, I'm making a big commitment, and I say, well, I'm already a VP, you know, I'm already enjoying this successful career. What do you think it is? I mean, staying abreast of developments in AI, what are the sort of things that you think either a technical specialist then sees in the exec MBA that says, that's what's going to make it worthwhile?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will give a lot of props to our faculty. They have introduced new courses around some of these new topics that are really exciting. I mean, things I would love to sit on myself. They really are at the forefront. Obviously, Austin has been known for, being very cutting edge. But yeah, I mean, I reiterate what the other guys have said in terms of, people who are really looking at using it in a variety of different ways. But I think the commonality is that they're looking to, again, gain confidence in their abilities and be able to grow the impact in their organization. And, really when our faculty are teaching in, some of the other programs, say a full-time program where we have students who are a little bit earlier in their career, they're teaching these skills so that, the full-time students can immediately go out and, perform the analysis, or they can be sort of, whether it's individual contributor or manager, but they're immediately going to be using the skills. Whereas in the executive classes, very lively classrooms, lots of opinions, lots of great experience there. But they also take the approach of, you are going to be managing other people. You might be doing this, core technical work, but you might also just need to know how to manage it, how to manage other people who are doing it. And so I think it creates really lively discussions about, what's important to know, not just in yourself, but also as you work with your coworkers, as you work with your company. And I think when we talk to employers, that difference it really comes through in the students. They're thinking really broadly, they're thinking really strategically, and they view, as everyone has says here, the degree is really, really flexible. It can be applied in so many different ways throughout your career. And I think that really sets it apart. Both the MBAs agree, but specifically the executive MBA just has an enormous amount of flexibility.
And Bill, as you think about programming and both the stimulation of ideas, it's not theory. They're going to take an idea from a Saturday afternoon class into the boardroom on Monday morning. I mean, does that really then make a difference? This tangible sense of something that they've discussed or thought-provoking that they take back to work for the next week?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the hallmark of any executive program, regardless of where you go. And not that I will ever violate confidentiality of my students, but I often hear that it's like class on Monday, I'm applying on Tuesday. And I think even the research about why people join executive MBA programs really gets to the idea of impact, certainly compensation, certainly trajectory in their career. But the one thing that I hear my students talk about, I'm here because I always ask, why are you here? And it all comes down often to decision making, to advancing, to leading others or leading bigger teams, having more say, whether it be P&L or just the enterprise that they're involved in. And I think you're absolutely right, whether it be the curriculum, the co-curriculum, I think our students gain a lot and just, and I think that's I smile when you talk about faculty, and they always tell me they really enjoy our because I think they see some immediate relevance to the student, and the student in turn shares that back to them. And so I think that's in terms of the programming that occurs, we try to do things on a very tactical basis, some maybe a little bit higher altitude on things, but and certainly the curriculum that's there, I think that's what our students really enjoy most, is that this has immediate relevance to me. And regardless that they were an undergrad in business, I almost dare our students say, you're not going to learn something new. You're absolutely going to learn something new because it's a new world. It's new technology than when you were in school 10, 15 years ago. So I think you're absolutely right about the impact of what these programs and the relevance and the immediate applicability that these programs have for our students.
Right. And the world changes, advances, but the individual also evolves. And perhaps, Craig, when Sarah talks about gaining in confidence, they might now know how to handle a balance sheet, or they can calculate discounted cash flow. But is it in these areas of confidence, managing teams, or even just a self-awareness and how that permeates into their daily professional lives?
Yeah, I agree. I think, each of our programs here, our students are going to walk away with an excellent education. We all have great curriculums within our programs, and they're going to learn a lot. But I think just equally as what they're going to learn in the textbooks is what they're going to learn from their peers. And I think that's where I think the self-confidence and that extra stuff of the program actually comes from, is when they're actually discussing problems within the classroom. They're also, each of them are using experiences that they've dealt with within their own companies. And so I think they're learning from each other just as much as they're learning from the textbook. And I think, it's always good to be relatable with somebody who's going through the similar challenge you are, dealing with a profit loss statement or whatever. It's that commonality or those things that they can relate to each other, in which to commiserate a little bit, but also learn from each other. Hey, how did you overcome this challenge? What did you do in this situation above and beyond? Certainly using their curriculum that they're in the education that they're learning inside the classroom to help complement what those peer-to-peer discussions as well.
Right. Forgive me, Sarah, when I have great panelists and we have discussions like this, I sometimes go off script. And I know you were thinking of some of the things we will be discussing. But, when Craig talks about that support and solidarity, there's a community there. In our professional lives, it's difficult sometimes to let our guard down. It's about performance and, how things come across. Do you observe the EMBA almost as like a safe space where among their cohort, they can be vulnerable, that they can be, searingly honest. There's a real authenticity that they rarely get to enjoy, perhaps back in the workplace.
Yeah, and I first off, definitely agree. And I think there's two parts to that. I think there's the part in the classroom, and then there's, the relationships that are also extend outside of the classroom. I think in the classroom, as we've said, you really get to explore problems they're working. Certainly we see students who bring, this was the problem that I was facing last week. This is applicable in this class. Let's talk through it. And you can, have all of your best advisors around you. We certainly see that. And I think just a willingness to share is one of the things that's really great about the executive MBA program. But then also, you take those conversations outside of the classroom, and all of a sudden now you've talked about the challenges that you're facing. You have all these people who are, maybe at similar stages than you, maybe not, but you're all going through the same experience, and can offer perspectives, different backgrounds, and it set the stage for, that continuing conversation outside of the classroom. And we really hear that a lot from the students, not just that they gained a lot in the program, but the foundation that they laid in the classroom. Those people became some of their best advisors, outside of the classroom and after the program as well, certainly.
Right. All three of your schools have a world-class full-time MBA program and this shared 21-month immersive experience. Bill, when you then look at networks, that support, being able to reach out to your fellow executive MBA students that, you're seeing, given the flexibility on a sort of modular weekend basis, do you observe that the networking is as powerful, the cohesion, and maybe they even have a better sense of what they're looking for in the relationships they're developing?
Yeah, without a doubt. And our programs start, the first part of their curriculum is in a cohort model. So they are kind of lockstep through the first part of their curriculum. So they definitely get to know each other. And that's for any one of our programs, whether it be the evening Charlotte or the weekend program. And then within that, they have study teams and they stay with that study team, a lot of group projects throughout their first year. And I hear from students all the time, oh yeah, I stay in touch with my study team. I stay in touch with the cohort. It is a powerful network. And the one thing that I often ask or encourage my students to do in terms of maybe those that haven't been as versed in networking skills in the past, just start with your cohort. Just get to know each other and have these conversations that Sarah was talking about. And the other thing that we find, it doesn't happen every day, but often when our students do switch roles or careers, it is because mainly due to a classmate who acted as a reference, encouraged them to do it, or provided an opportunity or spoke to a colleague and said, hey, you really ought to look at this person. So, that's not the only way that, we source roles, but it is a powerful way that source roles. And based on I've been at Kenan-Flagler now for almost 6 years, just maintaining those networks. networks, and it allows me as an administrator to broker a connection with a current student, with the student who I knew graduated 3 or 4 years ago. I always ask first, but I've never had someone tell me no. And it's just those connections that continue. Maybe they weren't in the same cohort, but they were in the same program. They went through the same things as an evening or Charlotte or weekend student. And I think it just creates that automatic connection. So definitely the networking is pretty powerful.
Right. Craig Naz would have me repeat, always a Gator, and you are part of this, extended network of tens of thousands. The reputation that comes with that for the exec MBA students at Warrington, with employers, you've got many on your doorstep. Are there qualities and characteristics that they see in your students that we always see this in a Gator? This is something that we love to bring into our organizations.
Yeah, I think when you ask that question, two really things come to mind. One is grit. I think that being a Florida Gator, there's a bit of a grittiness to us and our students, that they're competitive. They want to win. They want to be the best business person that they can be, and best human being they can be, and both inside and outside of the classroom, but inside and outside of work as well. And so I think it's that blue collar mentality and a white collar kind of suit, if you will, in terms of the profile that our employers like among our students, but also problem solving, right? I think problem solving is a key component to our MBA program, in that they're going to be constantly pushed to solve problems, and whether it be case studies or experiential learning opportunities, or career support, we've come to be known as problem solvers, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, and I think employers really like that too.
Sarah, when someone that you meet talk about the program, like, yeah, but my classmates, they're all winners. They strive, they're talented, successful. I'm perhaps a less traditional profile. I'm not sure if I fit. And often we've seen with the exec MBA, women that have shied away from making that investment in themselves for myriad reasons. How do you like to reassure them that they'll find their place in this community?
Yeah, well, I would say I think everyone who's in the EMBA program is there because they're looking for something more, right? So everyone is looking for something. People might come across, a lot of our students are certainly very confident, but they're all looking to level up. They're all looking for something, whether it's a gap that they want to fill or just something that they want to grow into. So I think that there's a lot of commonality there. But yeah, we actually see a tremendous amount of diversity of backgrounds in our EMBAs. There have been mentions of veterans, quite a bit. We certainly see that, but we see people from, traditional finance backgrounds, operations backgrounds, but also, arts, government, different areas that, you might see in the full-time program, but it's just really a diverse class. And in terms of the outcomes, we see a lot of diversity. Full-time might be more heavily focused on places like consulting. And certainly we have consultants in the EMBA program, but it's not as heavily weighted. It's really a diverse class, both in terms of the demographics, but also just in terms of the interests and the backgrounds. And, I mentioned they're all there because they want to level up, but what that looks like is so unique for each student. I think someone had used the word bespoke or was saying how it's each of the students is looking for something a little bit different, which everybody's different, but I would say our EMBAs are definitely different. And they really have a sense of the path that they're looking for. And so a lot of what we do is trying to, cater to that, support that, make sure that we bring in, whether it's, career resources, industry coaches, things like that can really meet all of the diverse needs, because it's really one of the strengths of the class.
With 4 kids, Bill, I sometimes rely on the idea of, we don't always do things because they're easy. We do them because they're hard, and with the rewards that brings. When candidates say, yeah, but I could take a couple of courses on Coursera, taking that extra step, that commitment. And then, of course, you've got to find the time, the investment that you're making in yourselves. Does it make a difference, the fact that there's this level of commitment? I mean, it's not going to be easy to fit into an already very busy working and perhaps family life.
You're absolutely true. Many of our students do have young families just based on the age they are. They're working full time, and of course, involved in a very rigorous program. And often when a student starts, and I'm on just about every webinar our admissions teams does, and we kind of foreshadow this a little bit. We kind of say, this is not easy, but it is doable because I know lots of students who have done it in the past. I've had women who have had children in the middle of the program, and that's an amazing amount of respect I have for these people that and they graduate, they have the kid and everything works out and they just go right back into it. So that's amazing. So, but it does take some decision making, and we talk to students about some things you're going to need to defer, and some things you're going to need to delay, maybe a vacation or something elaborate. Some things you'll just need to maintain, and then sometimes you'll need to focus, especially around finals times. And so we talk to the students about understanding, well, not necessarily time management, but more opportunity management. But you have all these things available in the program. You can't do everything, but you will need to be strategic about how you want to finish and what you can do based on what your circumstances allow. But there are some decision making that needs to occur to successfully navigate a very busy life, a very busy job, a very busy program.
Are those things, Craig, that you look to anticipate? I was saying earlier that Ursula, that organizes the Centre Court events, she's meticulously organized. And I promised her, I'll be organized tomorrow. I'll be better at setting priorities tomorrow. We'll see where that takes us. But trying to anticipate so that students can hit the ground running and thrive and flourish. Do you work with them in those early stages to help to set parameters, priorities, and organize?
Yeah, I do. I think it's important. I was just having a conversation this afternoon with one of our DBA students who's has gone back to get his DBA after 20 years, right? And so we talked about that. It's what do I do after a gap of 10 years going from undergrad or my previous degree? And we work with them to help them set expectations about that 10 to 15 hours a week of work related to their program. But then again, in addition to the time spent, if they want to make that career switch or that pivot or that career and professional development. And so it's getting them back to their days or even their time at work is scheduling, right? Is having a structure of your day, having a structure of your week, so that you're not struggling through this program. Don't make it hard on yourself, right? The successful individuals in all of our programs are going to have a structure and a schedule to balance work, life, and social and school all at the same time. So we encourage them to really sit down, think about having a significant and strong structure about their every day, about their every week, and about their every month as they approach the EMBA program.
Right. Sarah, to return to this idea of an individual that may well imagine a specific role in a particular company and the career path that they have mapped out. And here is this gift, this rare opportunity to step back, hold up a mirror and really think about what they want and perhaps who they want to be. Is that something that you really witness in the program, this sense of self?
Absolutely. And I think of all your questions, I think this one is probably my most favorite. We have some students that come in who are really looking to explore. We have some that have a real sense of goal. Both are great. I would say for those that have a really specific goal, the goal is still, the outcome. The inputs are what you're learning, how you're building your relationships, your understanding of yourself and your motivation and your values. And so there's so many resources provided. And so we really encourage students, having a specific goal is great. It can really be a North Star. It can be very motivational. As we've said, it's a lot of work, knowing specifically why you're doing it. If that is what is, why you're doing it, can be really helpful. But we do find students coming in and realizing that they're having some of these more foundational conversations, that they're questioning things about, I've been doing this for so long. And so that was the next natural goal. But if there were more opportunities, would I be interested in those? Let me explore them. And one of the, I think, pros and cons, UT's campus, there's so much going on all the time that it can be overwhelming. And so having that sense of purpose and understanding can really help you guide what you want to do while you're here on campus. I say this, President Biden is literally on campus right now as we're talking. There's always something going on. And so knowing yourself, knowing why you're here, being willing to explore, but then kind of coming back and, checking those goals along the way is definitely something that we work with the students on, whether it's through, the academic advising, the student advising, or the career advising, or, other advisors that are available to you. There's so much going on. We want to help people develop their story, get to their goal. But sometimes the goals change. Sometimes they don't. Both are great.
Well, sense of purpose, Bill. You know it when you see it, but difficult to measure. And the full-time MBA students at Kenan-Flagler, they could say, well, here was my MBA salary. This is what I'm earning as I come out of school, or 3 years out of school. But the exec MBA, very often, individuals, this is accompanying positions that they keep. So how do you like to measure outcomes? Maybe the promotion, maybe now managing that project or that small team. What are the things that you feel really capture that sense of personal development and fulfillment?
Yeah. Well, just on the numbers basis, we try to apply MBA CSEA data tracking. So we do track outcomes. We have a kind of a unique way of capturing new roles and promotions that occur while they're in the program. We do a book recognition. So anytime a student gets a new role or promotion, either external or internal, we get them a copy of the first 90 days. And based on their preference, we either do that publicly or privately. But it's just a way, and it's kind of a backdoor way of capturing career progressions or changes that happen while they're in the program. And I think we can all agree that's the biggest myth of executive MBA programs, that students aren't going to, take different roles while in their program. Their companies are paying for it. And we know that's just not the case these days, as we talked about earlier. So that is one way we capture progression in title, maybe changes to a new employer, maybe a change or a pivot to a new function, or even a small pivot to an industry that they weren't in before. So, and then of course, as they get close to graduation, we do try to capture that through survey data. We also capture program satisfaction through, middle, and post program. My colleagues who are the program directors handle that part. And then in terms of, and in fact, it's interesting you make this, raise this question, because next week we're going to be talking to the students who are about to transition to the elective portion about how do you want to capture that? And how will you measure progress on there? And how to really make the second part of your program very intentional for you as you start to think about, getting over the hurdle of the first year and really finishing out strong.
Right. Craig, if I was sharing a moment with 3 Gators, so one has just graduated, made it. One is perhaps 3-5 years out, and another one 7-10 years out. And I said to them, well, what really stood out for you? What do you think was the biggest gain from the program? And perhaps there are different reflections at different stages, but would they say it was about the increase in salary? What sort of things do you think that they would share that was a personal reflection on the ROI that they got out of the program?
I think it would be really, I don't think I know, it would be their experience holistically, right? And so when you think about the entirety of their experience in the EMBA program, whether it be curriculum, whether it be career, whether it be our professional development opportunities, or even that social aspect of the program, they're going to walk away saying to themselves, holistically, that was a really, really great experience, right? I learned a lot. I built my bench of advocates and individuals that I can network for a lifetime. I have if they engaged in career, in whether it be with a promotion or a pivot, they're armed with the information that will help them set them up for success in the future if they want to navigate career switching or anything like that. So holistically, I think that's what they're going to remember about our program, is the networking, is the curriculum, is the career, it's the professional development. And sometimes there are opportunities to go see football games on weekends. So,
yeah, well, we've got the Longhorns somewhere in that background, Sarah. But my final question to all 3 of you is about preparing the next step. So I'd love to find out, how to reach out to you, to your teams, to alums, but equally preparing those steps, conversations that you could start to have maybe with your partner maybe with your boss, at work, and thinking about where this would fit. So what would your thoughts be, both in terms of laying that groundwork and then, of course, how they can reach out to McCombs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about the time commitment. Certainly starting with your partner around goals is always a good place to start. But, I know, so I'm lucky enough to also have my MBA from McCombs, and one of the things that I did in preparation for that was use that as an opportunity to reach out, and whether it was talking to people that I already knew and sort of picking their brains, looking through LinkedIn, finding people who, I admired, or just people that I didn't know and reached out to. It really gave me an opening to have some of those exploratory conversations that really shaped the goals that I set, my experience, and everything thereafter. And so thinking about it, there's so many people, whether it's, certainly any McCombs alum would be happy to connect and chat about their experience. But also just people that you know, or whose careers that you admire, talking to them about their journey is a great place to start. And yes, we can provide contact information. We're always happy to do sessions. We have lots of opportunities for people to, whether it's, talk with current students or come to campus if, that's an option, see classes, talk to different academic advisors. We're all here because, every MBA is unique. And so we want to make sure that, it's the right fit for you and that we're giving you all the information you need.
In terms of managing that conversation, Bill, sort of the macro, the big picture versus more granular details about the program and its delivery and how you fitted that into other work and family commitments. What would you encourage our viewers to get out of that exchange with alums, the team, to really find out about the Kenan-Flagler program and being a great fit for you?
Yeah. I think everything that has already been mentioned. One thing that we certainly try to encourage is talk to, as we talked about, students who have gone through the program, and not necessarily that full-time student. A lot of my students have friends and colleagues that went through a full-time, but it's a very different experience. And I'm not judging one with the other, but it is different. And because this is I think even more so on the EMBA side, it is a group decision. Partners, children, some who may or may not be old enough to understand what's going on. So just understand that, setting level and expectations with supervisor. If you're supervising people, your own team, that, I may be out on Fridays every now and then, or need to leave work early on Mondays to get to class. But I think really having those discussions with alums and often our students know someone who went through the program. What are the hours involved? Not just in class, but what were the out of class hours? What were the expectations of meetings with your study team? What were the expectations of meeting maybe with a faculty member? What else is involved in my commitment to this program beyond just showing up to class during that period? And I think that's an important conversation. We certainly try to front end that as much as we can, but as you know, we have to be chief reminding officers. So we encourage students to talk to current students or recent grads just to kind of get a feel of what it's really going to involve and how much. And I think more importantly, how did they navigate it? And how did they get through it? And how did they, who are very similar in many respects, how did they manage it all? And, they'll say it's going to be tough at times. And maybe some seasons are busier than others. But again, I think that's the important kind of distinction is asking their advice how to best navigate this. And then, I'll certainly have maybe a pre-matriculation conversation with the student. They want to know a little bit more about what to expect from us, because obviously you got to throw coaching time if they want to take advantage of that into the mix and other things. So again, these are just several things that we would recommend and encourage current students, new students, and prospective students to do.
Right. Craig, going back to your comments about taking a holistic approach, I'd love to take the theme of our panel, which has been recurrent through the Centre Court Festival today, where we've asked, where an MBA can take your career. And I want to shorten that phrase and ask you where an MBA can take you. Now, that of course will include a career, but it starts with the person. So just perhaps your final thoughts about where an MBA can take you and how people can be thinking about this next step.
Right. Right, absolutely. And I think it all great answers from my colleagues in terms of the outreach and how to identify it. But I think it's some self-reflection on each individual to ask themselves the why. Like, why are you coming back to school to get an executive MBA? What's the purpose, right? And as you define the why you're coming back to school, I think that's what you'll identify as potentially what you can get out of it. And I think that you may not necessarily know the why right away, but when you speak to alumni or when you speak to colleagues on the call to talk about their programs, they start to develop the why, and that I think will certainly help define their own experience within the program. So I think it's certainly individualistic when it comes to each one of us as to why we do an EMBA program, but it's just not to check a box. This is a very difficult endeavor that individuals are going to go after. Executive MBA, as leaders, you want to be pushed, you want to be tested, and so it's not going to be easy. So, but define your why. Why are you doing this? And that will help answer a lot of those questions. And the conversations that you have about each individual program with alumni or program directors is going to be so much more robust when you know the why around it.
Right. With my co-host John Byrne and the rest of the team at Poets and Quants, our sincere hope with these festivals is to help people define their why. And when we think about what the title of the panel might be, that only really works when we have great panelists who take us on this journey of reflection and who you want to be and your values and what are your goals. And all three of you made a wonderful, wonderful contribution to helping people to find that why. And I hope as readers watch this next week, next month, next year, I want to thank each of you for helping perhaps each of them to think about that. So Craig, Bill, Sarah, it was a pleasure to have you at the festival. Thank you for your time and thanks for such a great discussion. It was a wonderful way to wrap up the festival.